Okay, hello, this is Krista with alifeinprogress.ca. And I get to be here with my friend, Kathy Escobar. Welcome, Kathy.
It's good to be here. I'm glad we can hang out today.
Yeah, me too. And I would even love going for a hike with you more than this, or, having just a cup of coffee and a long 8-hour chat, but also this is good.
To start, an 8-hour chat to start.
Yeah. Okay, so we're loosely going to be talking about loving ourselves tenderly as we wander, stumble, and against all odds continue to hope. Oh, that's such a beautiful line. And it's from your work. I just don't remember where.
Me neither. I have no idea where that's from.
Yeah, I found it somewhere.
But I believe it. I do believe it.
So Kathy is a pastor, writer, speaker, advocate, rule breaker, dreamer, mama of 5, and I'm grateful to call her my friend. She's the author of many books, including her latest, Practicing, Changing Yourself to Change the World. And then the brand new devotional, I think it's called A Weary World, Reflections for a Blue Christmas. And that offers practical support and comfort to those struggling during the most wonderful time of the year. Is that a devotional?
I hate the word devotional.
Yeah. I don't love it either.
So that's not a word I would use. I
Okay.
mean, it is kind of written for weeks of Advent.
Okay, like reflections.
I would call it spiritual reflections. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I hate the word devotional.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
totally
a turn
triggering
off.
to
It
me.
kind of feels like a turn off. Yeah,
Right.
but yes, and I would love for people to kind of want to check it out. So I feel this since I've met Kathy, but definitely she has a heart for weary and hurting people and for creating safe and brave spaces for transformation and healing. So I've witnessed that in you, Kathy, and that, for the time we've known each other, and I've also, read that in your work. That really comes out. So not getting overly mushy, but you are a gift to me in this season. So.
Well, I'm so sad that we met the way that we did. It's a terrible way to meet, but it has been a gift to me to know you.
Yeah.
And meeting cool people.
Meeting cool people from different corners of the world is just one of the most amazing gifts, I think, of working online too. It creates that, or even not even working, but hopefully the women who engage in our work or whatever, the humans, they get to connect with each other too. And I just think I love it. I'm grateful.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. All right. So I like to jump in and I don't feel like I need to, we're getting to know each other on a personal level, but I want to just sort of start with a couple more personal things, questions. And I really do always appreciate it, getting a peek into the mind or heart or life of the other person that I, have the privilege of sitting face to face with. So for you, Kathy, what's your Enneagram type? And then what's one strength and one struggle that's really tangled up with that part of who you are?
Well, I'm an Enneagram 2 with a 3 wing, and have been working with the Enneagram for, oh my goodness, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, long time. The Refuge started doing Enneagram stuff about that long ago. So the whole Enneagram is like embedded into our community, and kind of all the people we're with, talk this language. And it's been really helpful for me to identify. I'm like so hot on 2. Like I test really high.
Okay.
The things it's not, I'm not like sort of between, I'm a solid 2.
Okay.
And I kind of probably knew that going in, but it's become more apparent. And the positive is sure that I love people and can do that naturally, and like to help and I like to connect and be with humans and care freely. And absolutely that is a weakness. And so, because it can become so much about other people.
Okay. That you lose yourself.
Yeah. And so, and I have been doing codependency work for 20 plus years, way over that, and really getting in touch with those unhealthy patterns. And so, not, everyone, in my opinion, is codependent, but twos do have a special piece of codependency,
Yeah.
of just kind of taking on what's out there, and making it our own so that we can feel okay in the world and help people. And there's a purity to it. And then there's a downside to it. And so for me, the downside is just kind of taking care of other people and not taking care of myself, prioritizing other people and not myself naturally. Like, I don't even know I'm doing it. It's not conscious.
Okay.
I'm just used to it. And then
now though, do you sort of find yourself in the thick of things and you're like, I did it again, or like that kind of thing? Or how does that work for you to be able to continually move towards integration and wholeness and better boundaries and all of that?
Yeah, I would just say I get out quicker now. I still get myself in, I don't get it myself into as many things as I used to. I've grown over many, many years,
Yeah.
but I still find myself there. It's like a default. And so when I do, I can feel it in my body faster than I used to.
Ooh.
And
Ooh,
so
okay. I'm so sorry. I have to interrupt you. Okay.
No, you're fine.
Because I do a lot of talking about like mind body integration and learning to acknowledge emotion and where it lives in our bodies and learning to be less afraid of it and all of that. And so I want to ask you, what does that feel like in your body when you're like, I feel it when I'm there in a place, where I've gone too far in that direction? What does that feel like to you?
Yeah, what it feels like to me is kind of like an edginess, like a high alert. And it's like I'm not relaxed, I'm not grounded, I'm a little disassociated and, kind of like floating above and sort of buzzy.
Okay.
And that's a really exhausting feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times with that comes kind of a resentment, like, oh, that feeling. This is what it feels like in my body.
Okay.
Oh. And
so is that emotion, like resentment, is that one of your key indicators, I guess? Like, is that a word where you can often tie it back to those moments where you're maybe not at your strongest, healthiest, most rooted?
For me, it's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As I could just feel that feeling, like a resentment is probably like, why me? Why do I have to be involved? Why are you asking me? Why, like that passing that line of freedom. That's usually too, like the other part for me is like, I know when I'm healthy, I love in freedom.
Oh.
And when I'm not, I'm loving out of necessity in some way, whether that's to make someone happy, to make it easier for me, to, it doesn't come from that free place.
Yeah.
And freedom for me just feels like ease. So that's how I kind of know when I'm out of whack, is when things are not, there's not an ease. It doesn't mean it's not hard things, because I work in hard places. I'm a pastor in hard places. And so it's not about that. It's not about the hard thing.
Yeah.
It's about the ease with it. And then I know when it's like everything just feels like a chore, that I'm really out in an unhealthy place as a 2.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe like people listening, there's a lot, I love Enneagram talk, and a lot of the people in my community are familiar with it. And if you're not, Google it and you can start learning. I'm a 1 and a fairly strong 1, though I definitely have seen seasons of my life where I think I see the 9 and the 2 in me equally, but sometimes I have noticed one more than the other, but I do feel them both. I can see strength and struggle in both for me, but otherwise, yeah, very much a 1. And one of my cues is anger. Underneath anger is fear. I'm just like, fear is just has always been a big player in my life. And fortunately, I'm just so much more conscious, but what it sounds like is anger. And so I think it might be interesting for people listening to kind of check in and say, ooh, where does that live in my body? And what does that sound like? And, to notice, because I do really want essentially for us to be offering just even through personal story and maybe some, mostly personal story that people can just glean from, to encourage people to make a priority of their own self and soul care. And this is language that's used a lot, self-care, and somehow we still fall short all the time. So
Right.
so it bears repeating, but also I love how, from hearing from other women how they walk it out, I think it can just be like encouragement in a way that when we just give them like a book to read of didactic kind of teaching, follow these rules, it's different. Or maybe that's just me, but I learn it through story. And I want to see lived experience, or hear, not just research, not just rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of my favorite things actually about the Enneagram. Personally, I love it as a tool, is that I love people talking about what we're noticing and what we're experiencing and what we're feeling and how we're trying to become more integrated, and, ways to practice that. And that's one of my favorite parts of it as a tool. It's really helped me. And I think it's helped us in community a lot, just in friendship, in helping respect all of our differences and all of our beauty and all of our healing that needs to happen, kind of through owning, the deeper story. It's all about story, really, and how it's playing out in our life, and how we want to own parts of it, and celebrate it, and we want to own it all, but also go, yeah, I don't really want that story. Like, I've had a hard week this week where it feels familiar, and I was like, I can do this for a few days because I need to, for some weird circumstances, but I don't want to live my life this way. I used to, and I don't want to feel this way an extended period of time, day after day.
Okay, Kathy, totally off script. And we're going to get there, not everybody knows, so I'll explain later. Since the death of your beautiful boy, do you find yourself more than ever before just unwilling to entertain bullshit, unwilling to live with pretense? Like, do you feel that way? I do. And so I'm just really curious.
100%. I had it before, to some degree, because I worked in the margins for a long time, and I've been in recovery for a long time. And so in general, that's like, I just hate it, but I'm used to, I can tolerate it more before Jared died.
Yeah. Okay.
And now I just, no, I can't do it at all. Like, I just don't have the margin for games, light, fake, surfacey, trite, whatever those things are. And it's okay that other people can live there. I just can't. I can only do like real, honest, raw, vulnerable, present, unplugged, not tied to weird spiritual platitudes. Like, I can only do those things right now.
Yeah. Okay. What are you most proud of in your life?
Oh,
and it could be whatever's, that's such a big question, but like, it could be your lifetime, it could be just today, if that's what you want to focus on. I don't care. But I do believe in acknowledging our beauty and how like we're working our butts off, and we deserve to love ourselves well, even when we're messy humans in a messy world.
To be honest, like, the first thing that comes to mind right now is that I'm really proud of both of us for just being here, to be able to have this conversation a year and some change past the death of our precious kids. And that feels like kind of a miracle to me. Just that we're still standing, even though we're crawling too, that we're able to have this conversation. It makes me proud and grateful. I was really grateful to have met you so early on in this journey, because we really need each other, which kind of leads me to the second thing, is that I'm really proud of all the healing work over all the years and creating healing community and connection. And I didn't ever really do it all for other people. I kind of did it for me because I needed it. But I just value it so much. And it's saved my life way before Jared, but it's like put to the test this year. And, I knew it was real. I just love your kitty. Oh my gosh. And so I think I'm really I'm proud of my community, and I'm proud of humans in my life who endure the hardest things. They're all different. They're not all our story,
Yeah.
but they're hard stories, and proud that we're all like trying to keep growing and learning and staying in and not running, even though it's so hard.
Right.
And we're living as much as we can, despite a lot of reasons to want to check out.
Yeah. I want to just, yeah, reiterate, like, and just say, because highlight a couple ideas. One is that, and for people listening, if you feel like, oh, I'm never going to change, life, it's never going to get better, whatever, it's like, no, it will, and it can. We've, like Kathy and I both would say, I'm proud of myself too for how hard I work to heal and become, and, you know, and I don't think I'd be standing here today if I hadn't done that work. Like after the loss of my boy, I'm just like, it would have taken me out. Like I just am clear on that. So keep going. Baby steps literally do count. They matter. And you highlight community, and that's one of your giftings, I think, is building community. And we need each other, right? Like not just, neuroscience says, like or trauma research says,
What's the
like
temperature down 1 degree?
we, I'm just muting somebody here. We heal in community. Okay, sorry, I'm just seeing a blank screen. Before I continue, Kathy, what do you see on the screen right now?
I see you, and then I think there's somebody joining, and I just see their name.
Okay, it's okay. We'll keep going then.
Okay.
My recordings are always imperfect. So yeah, there's that community matters. And I never found community easy in my life. Actually, I always found it really hard. It's like I desperately wanted deep connection and honest, like where I could be myself and not hide parts of myself. And I did a lot of hiding depending on who I was with. And for acceptance, even though that's not really real acceptance or belonging. And but that deep connection, I felt like I had a hard time with it, and I would isolate. And so it's been a lot of work for me actually to move towards people. I'm so grateful for it because I don't want to do this life alone. And honestly, I'm so grateful that even my son had beautiful friends, like amazing friends who truly loved him, embraced him, like, and somehow that, I know not everybody has that, right, when they lose a child. And but I'm going to tell the truth, that matters to me. It's like that sense of he wasn't alone. He was suffering, but they would have done anything for him. Like they loved him. Anyway, that's just super like messy and off track, but community matters. So anybody listening, it's like we really can find online ways of connecting in this weird time of COVID. Or maybe you're just like me, where you live in a small town and it's hard to find your people. Just like reach out to myself, reach out to Kathy, maybe, like, and just if you like, I don't know if we'll know the answers, but maybe we'd have a couple ideas of ways you could get connected in. Yeah, it just matters so much.
Yeah, it does. And it looks different for everybody. Not everybody thrives in different contexts.
Yeah.
And so, I have a certain one that I like, just feels better. But I think finding a few kindreds and a place to keep getting strength and cultivating resilience and some of those things is like so important. And that's why spaces like you're creating are so critical. We know that we just need them. And without it, I always just say, like, most change never happens by ourselves in our own little thing. It doesn't mean that we don't have to retreat to get quiet and be in ourselves, but usually it's like somehow it comes from reflection and connection with other people.
Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to just briefly tell us about the Refuge? So maybe there are people in your area of the world that, might be able to get connected that way.
Yeah, and so the Refuge is a Christian community and mission center since 2006 that I helped co-found and co-pastor in 2006. And it's really like I call it a hub for healing, community, and social action. And so people are all over the place. It has Christian roots, but it's not overtly Christian. And so it's confusing for people on what it is because it doesn't, it's like not as it's a church, but it's not a church. It really is a hub for healing, community, and social action. And so we do all kinds of things from, community gatherings to 12-step groups to single moms to we have a Refuge Cafe, which is a place for people who need kind of a cheers bar without the alcohol, a place to rest, advocates, resources, showers for people who are experiencing homelessness. All different kinds of hard things are contained in the Refuge. We do a lot of learning parties, workshops, anti-racism 12 steps. Tonight is our House of Refuge, which is kind of just a group of people that gather together for spiritual show and tell is what we call it. And so different people facilitate. We're really our progressive, inclusive community. So it just looks different. So it's definitely not like, hey, we have this one thing and people join in. Like people come in for all different ways and connect. But the healing community part is core. So there's a lot of authenticity, rawness. No one like pretends. I mean, you can, but on the whole, the culture is I kind of don't have the margin anymore to try and pretend. I just need to bring my real self as best I can and all my awkwardness, all my everything. So mental health is always up on everything. Being trauma-informed community is up on everything. That's kind of just everything I would say here. We try and bring it to the surface and make all the weird things in the world feel more normal because we're all experiencing them, even though we wish we weren't, or we're used to being in a place where we had to separate off and pretend. We don't have to here.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And so, do you have a website or what's the?
Yeah, it's therefugeonline.org, or you can just go on my website, kathyescobar.com. There's a link to the Refuge.
Okay.
And the best place to find out stuff about the Refuge is really our Facebook page. I mean, the website says stuff, but the Facebook page gets a sense of what we're doing a little bit better.
Okay. But just in case people aren't on Facebook, because my video will go out in other ways. So
for sure.
Refuge.org. Or the
therefugeonline.org.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, there are other refuges and they're not the Refuge. So find the right one. It's in Broomfield, Colorado.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy. So your new book, Practicing, I ordered myself a copy, and living in Canada sometimes, I get things sometimes it takes a while. So I'm not going to get it. I didn't get it in time. In it, though, you say that changing the world starts with changing yourself, and that's the subtitle of your book. How do you, I already feel like you just shared some of the ways you hope to change the world, but I'm still going to ask you, how do you hope to change the world, and how do you practice the idea of starting with yourself?
Well, I mean, this is for me, so the 12 steps I have a high value on. So the 12 steps of recovery. So I've always done codependent work, and I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. And so those meetings for me, it kind of is like I'm the one in the room. So as much as I want to change everybody out there, I'm the one in the room.
Right.
And so that principle to me translates. It's so easy to point the finger and want everybody else to do it differently in the ways that I wish that they would. And this kind of goes to bigger systems too. And
oppression or race,
all of it. Yeah. And then we kind of have to start with ourselves, but only ourselves isn't enough either. I mean, I am a corporate person, communities matter, systems matter. But usually even change in systems start with at least one person saying, we're going to try and embody something different, or we're going to talk about this, we're going to create this, and then it building a culture And so I think for me, that's what it is. It starts in the smallest place. And the reason why I like practicing, and practicing is kind of like my little labor of love, like pulling together all the things that I value.
Okay.
And it evolves. I mean, I wrote it before Jared died.
Right.
And then went to print or into production right then, and they held it. And so then I added a few things about Jared, which was so hard. It was like a week after he had died. It was just horrible timing. And then since then, I would add and change things again. I mean, it's evolving, but the big principles are in there are that change is always active, and we have to get out of our heads and into our bodies and our practices and engaging and learning that way. We have enough head knowledge. We actually have enough of all that stuff, or can keep seeking it. But that's not really going to translate to anything unless we practice something different.
Right.
And then, assess it and notice how uncomfortable it is, or where there was juice in life, or whatever it is. And so there's 10 practices in there that all kind of are mushed together, but they're separated. Those are the 10 chapters.
Can you mention just 2 or 3? I've looked at it online, but
yeah. I'll just say them all real quick. It's easy. And it's healing. It starts with healing, which is this conversation: listening, loving, including, equalizing, advocating, mourning, failing, resting, and celebrating.
Okay.
And then I would say, if I was adding one, I would add the practice of paradoxing. And what I mean by that is just that it's all the good and the bad and the hard and the beautiful and the messy and the glorious, and all of it is all in the same place. And that kind of is what's hard about the whole thing, is we really want things to be this way or that way. We want ourselves to be this way or that way. And it's always both and, not either or. So that was one change I would make from my own experience in this past year. And paradox is in practicing, but the more I kind of keep processing through what's in there and thinking about my own story, everyone's story I'm with, this paradox thing, we're not good at holding it. We're not. We want it to be one way or the other. And
I do want to just tell you that I wrote paradox on my sheet right beside the next question. I just did that this morning before we hopped on. So
oh wow, that sounds so fun. Yeah.
So I was going to sort of mix it up in there, but let's just keep going, like, because it's something that you do bring up in interviews, in I've heard it from you probably just when we're just chatting. So I know it matters to you, and I was curious. So both and is an idea that it's probably one of the most healing ideas that I still wrestle with it, but like when I started to kind of do my work around this, that really made a huge jump for me in finding my way towards greater freedom. And right now we're in a season where if we don't sit with paradox, we will die. Right? So yeah, go ahead and just share whatever is on your heart about that, if you are willing.
Yeah, I mean, I just think what you said like kind of sums it up, is that yes. And the piece for me that's big is it's easy to talk about paradox. I talked about it for decades, really solid this last decade. It's been in all the books I've written. I use it a lot, but I've never been tested on applying it in the way I have since October 28th, 2019. And so I knew it. I'm passionate about it and I believed in it.
Yeah.
But now there's no other way. There's no other way. And to survive. And it's opened my eyes in such a beautiful and hard way, is just how sad it is that our systems, and a lot of, I come from a faith tradition that I really untangled from, because it's so either or. It's so binary, it's so dualistic, and it really just didn't serve me. And most people I know, I mean, I work with a lot of people, that's kind of a big stream. It's just people that were like dedicated a lot of time to things of faith and ended up in not healthy places, and certainly not free.
Yeah.
And so I think paradox is so freeing. And then but it's a practice. That's why I kind of like the idea of practicing paradox, embracing paradox, the practice of paradoxing, whatever you want to call it, because it doesn't come natural at first glance. We want it to be different, and we want it to be easier. But then it's like the more I'm around it in my personal story, the more I can feel it is getting easier to hold it. So to let myself be happy, even though we're in our darkest season of our story and so sad every day, but then to still be able to mourn and celebrate at the same time. And that they don't ace each other out. It's just a both and I think it's a and I mean, you can pull in a lot of different things, and it's a good human growth practice that we just didn't get taught very well in most of our families or our significant systems that we lived in, whatever those look like. The systems are not built on paradox. The systems are built on dualism and binary and hierarchy.
Man, there's so much in there. I think like self-compassion, learning to practice self-compassion, it requires paradox too, or this idea that I have tried to find words around for maybe just 5-ish years. I think since I started my business, this idea that I'm allowed to love myself exactly how I am, and also still desire growth or healing or becoming. And that too, I think, like, so I talk about in my work, the three pillars of my work are self-awareness, self-compassion, and imperfect action. And imperfect action is the practicing, right? So
I love that.
And heart sturdy, because the other things are just head knowledge without walking them out. And the walking them out is scary as all get out. And we get hurt sometimes, and we make mistakes, and we stumble, and all the things. But I'm so grateful for learning to show up through fear and just do the practicing. And when I say rooted in self-compassion, it reminds me that we're going to always be practicing. It's not that we're not fighting to arrive per se, it's just as long as we have breath, at least within us, we're going to be getting our hands and hearts messy and feel weary at times, right? Need each other. Like, none of this is bad. And we judge it, I think, as bad when we're hurting or struggling or stumbling. Oh, and that ties so beautifully into this. I'm going to read it for people. So again, I'm going to read this phrase from Kathy's writing. So what my hope would be for all of us to learn to love ourselves tenderly as we wander, stumble, and against all odds, continue to hope. It's just so, so, so beautiful. So we've already referred to our boys. And so I want to say thank you publicly, though, to anybody, like members of our online communities, because you're the reason Kathy and I got to meet. So some of you were following both of us, and we didn't know each other. And you heard about that both our sons died by suicide within 5 days of each other. Kathy's youngest boy, a twin, and my oldest child, Jared and Jairus. Even their names are similar. But another, evidence for the gift of online community is that I wouldn't have met you without the help of other people. So I'm having some anxiety as we're talking about this. So if I sound weird, stumble over my words, that's why. It's okay.
You don't sound weird.
Okay. Oh, well, so let's talk about continuing to hope against all odds in the darkest of seasons. I feel like we have a little bit, and I mean, I think paradox, maybe you can even speak more to that in concrete ways so that people listening, if they need a picture of, okay, how could that look or sound or feel for themselves right now? That would be really helpful. But otherwise, let's just get super nitty gritty practical. So what has this looked, sounded, or felt like for you? And what would you like others to know if they're walking through the wilds of grief or a blue holiday season for whatever reason?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think out of everything for me, it really is. I started that hashtag. I mean, I'm sure it existed, but I just use it all the time because it really came super clear to me in our story. It's just grief has no rules.
Right.
And so grief has no rules. And so that honestly feels the most like hopeful to me because it means that we can just do what we need, and it doesn't have to look like the next person. All of our stories are really unique. And A Weary World kind of was a really helpful exercise for me to write because it kind of all came together about 3 months after Jared died. And it was on the table before, but it wasn't A Weary World. It was just something for the Advent season 2020.
Okay.
And then he died, and I was in huge trauma shock. And it just kind of came back like, is this something that I could do this year? And I said, I only have one idea. It's just one. And I think I could do it. I think I would like to do it, but I'm not sure. It's this. And the Westminster John Knox said, let's do it. It would be great. And the title was A Weary World before March 13th and the pandemic. March 13th is the day that I turned in the manuscript, which was the day that in the United States, at least, everything shut down.
Okay.
And we went to stay at home. So it was weary before. But what I got to do in the material was to think about these four things. And these are the 4 weeks in the material. And this is a short little piece of just 7 spiritual reflections that are kind of all over the place. It's got the Christian roots in it, but it's really not faith-based. And so it is honoring reality, practicing honesty, embracing paradox, borrowing hope. Those are the 4 things. And so the way that they all fit together in terms of hope is that like kind of doing those things, trying to practice them for me brings hope.
Okay. So say them again. So what are the 3 things that help hope?
Honoring reality. So that's just owning our stories.
Yeah.
Owning our true, messy, weird, hard, beautiful, all the things, stories, like honoring reality instead of escaping it, trying to figure it out in our head, like somehow make it all work, just honoring it. The second is practicing honesty. So the feelings in those reflections are fear and shame and anger and sadness, grief and disorientation, but there's a million other feelings. There's a way to build in that about expanding our repertoire of feelings,
Right.
which most of us weren't taught very well. We don't know what we're feeling. That's me for sure. Enneagram 2, I know what other people are feeling, but I don't know what I'm feeling. And then the third one is embracing paradox and holding all these differences in tension. And, I like what Father Richard Rohr says, because he says, if you can hold the paradoxes in ourselves, we can hold them in other spaces and people and institutions too. So I think that that's helped me with before Jared's death, but for sure with Jared's death, to like Jared was as paradoxical of a human as possible. And I remember parenting, I have 5 children. He was my baby with his twin brother and three other kids. And I remember saying out loud years ago, I can actually hold paradox halfway decent in some of my own story, but I cannot hold paradox very well in my children. Like I want them to be exactly how I want them to be, like in general, like it well behaved, all the things that make my life easier.
Right. Yeah.
And that there was something that was really freeing about saying that and just owning it and going, oh my gosh, the more I can see them as living paradoxes And, I've held that in the work that I do at the Refuge for years, but it's harder on my kids. And that was a long time ago. We were able to just own that. And I think just like embracing that, it's a paradox. This is a horrible story we're living. And also there is good in our lives at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's hard in death, is that you it's really easy to I remember saying this at one of Jared's memorial services. It was a celebration. We did not do anything but storytelling and raw and honest, and saying out loud the things that we were saying and telling the truth from the beginning. We did not pretend. People didn't need to wonder how he died, those kinds of things. It was really important. And it was interesting to get
For us too, by the way.
yeah,
I
which is
people even in my own community actually were mad at me, as ridiculous as this is, because how dare I make it a private ceremony where we could invite his friends and make it about actually my son, about the people who loved him getting up and sharing stories, and his sisters, and music that he would have loved, and we ate pizza and Tim Hortons coffee. Like, it was about honoring my beautiful boy. It wasn't about making it, having hundreds of people who, it wasn't about them. It was about my boy and his friends, and creating hope.
yes, and the hope comes in that honesty. And we had so many people tell us that they were just really grateful for like honesty, and that was really rare. And I remember my husband sharing, there we were together and just like, saying some of the things that we were experiencing. And it was so healing because we said it in out loud with people who were with us, in that moment. But one of the things we did say is we said, we are not going to make it be where, since Jared died, that he is like an unearthly being, and like ascend him to king status. And he never did any wrong. He was a human, and he was a beautiful hot mess, exactly like I'm a beautiful hot mess, and we all are.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite things, really. And it's hard. And so those things for me lead to borrowing hope. And one of my friends from the Refuge, and I've known her for a long time, she is such a resilient person. She's just been through so much in her own story, healing from really hard things and just hacking at it when all the odds are against her. And I always remember her saying, this is a long time ago, she said, I just need to borrow some hope from you guys, Kathy, because I just don't have any. And I was like, we can do that. Yeah. You can borrow some, because today
let me get you down, honey.
Anybody, we need you all on mute.
It will not. I can't do anything because I don't have any control. And so one of the pieces that I remember saying is like, yes, that's so possible. And hope was like my middle name, and forever. And it's one of my favorite words. And I have to say, like, having to like have it put to the ultimate test has helped me know that it is real. But sometimes I don't really have it. I have to borrow it from somewhere else. Yeah. And so that's, to me, like a little bit of Blue Christmas, hard, all of it is that one, it looks different for all of us, totally different. But I think honor and reality, learning how to practice honesty, embrace some paradox, can help sustain us. And that borrowing hope is something about community, seeing good in the world. This is not necessarily community like we think of it as a bunch of humans gathered in a room, just any kind of kindredness, and also seeing good work in the world. So one thing that's given me a lot of hope actually in the middle of this, because we've been doing our timing on grief has been really hard, because any timing is hard, but we do have a global pandemic 4 months in. Yeah. And then we have huge social change happening in the world on social action. And honestly, that has given me a lot of hope, because you see humans passionate about change
Mm, yeah.
and enduring really hard things on behalf of a greater good. And so even though I can't really do much in that department, even though I care about it, I'm just too impaired. It kind of gives me hope that there are young people who are really young people give me the most hope because they're not binary.
Yeah.
And that's a piece of my son's story. You know, he just was a non-binary person in general, like across everything.
Mhm.
And he's the future. And that gives me hope. The future is in good hands. And so those are just little things for me. My point is everybody needs to find their own. You know, you could listen to those and go, well, those aren't mine at all, but searching for it and trusting the long story of humanity helps me. I think we're in a long stream of people, humans who have endured really hard things for generations upon generations. And, you know, I can't fathom that sometimes, but it gives me hope because I'm like across every tribe and nation and everything over the, you know, thousands and thousands of years, you know,
Which doesn't mean there haven't also been, you know, there's been intergenerational trauma and
so
you know,
much pain.
Right. So it's like not dismissive of that, but I do think that the more we just honestly acknowledge what is.
I'm in the United States, California, Northern California. Okay, where are you there?
I have half brothers, and their side is there's aunts and cousins all in Reading.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
Yeah, we've been here almost 20 years. We lived in the snow in Lake Tahoe for 24 years. We have two children that are adults now. Our son's 39, and we just had our first grandbaby, Ava. She's 7 months old, so we're going to see her for Christmas. And then our daughter just got married. She's 41. So those were real exciting turning points for us. But yeah, we've always been in California.
Okay, no, congratulations. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Hi, Krista.
Hi.
We were just chatting.
Yeah, something is up with my Zoom. Can you hear me okay? Because when you guys okay, because it was really staticky when I was able to rejoin, but maybe it's okay now. All right.
Yeah, it might be like a little delayed, like just barely. Like, are you experiencing that, Joanne? Just barely.
Okay.
But all of a sudden you just froze. Like,
yeah, I can see you, Krista. She's clear on my side.
Okay.
And I can hear her.
Yeah, I'm hearing some weird static and everything, but we'll just keep going and yeah, hopefully it'll resolve itself. Okay. So I'm getting Joanne in the, for some reason Joanne is like in my view.
I think when you were, I think it doesn't show it on the recording.
Okay, all right.
I'm almost positive, but I don't know. I get confused by all that too.
Well, I'll probably just have my VA splice, like cut out a little bit of the video. Okay, so I had wanted to ask you, you referred to this, but when you were writing A Weary World, you said, I think that it was really good for you or healing. And I wanted to come back to that, just on the idea of, like, did it feel almost like you were finding meaning or you're forcing your brain almost to find some hope in the midst of a hard story as you were writing that, or what was that experience?
I think it was a combination of just the ability, because it's not just about death of a human. I mean, that's not really what A Weary World is about. It's really like when the season is hard. for a whole bunch of different reasons. But I think it just gave me the ability to just kind of not have to, they're little, so I didn't have to like put it all together in this big research thing. I could just write from my heart little pieces. And I think it just helped me because I'm a verbal processor. And so I like to process verbally, and writing is verbal to me. I just think of it like I write, like I talk kind of. And so I think I was really impaired with practicing because I couldn't I would rewrite the whole thing. I mean, it wouldn't change most of the content, but it would be through a different lens now. And I couldn't do that. It was like I had to add these things in, and I'm grateful I could, because I would be devastated if that thing was in the world without this huge part of my story not in there. And so it made it in there, and that was great. But I needed to, I don't know, integrate it a little bit more. And it just helped me just have a place to kind of practice some honesty, and then pull together my love is my community. And we've been doing Blue Christmases for 10 years. I always did it for other people. I didn't really feel that holiday feeling until last year. And so I loved doing it. I didn't mind. I always got a lot out of it, but I wasn't a person who entered into the holidays with dread.
Yeah.
And now I do. I mean, I can feel it in my body. I mean, it's just now from October through I don't know when, now I don't know. This is our first real second round through, and so I don't even know, but I know that the holidays don't feel like they used to feel.
Yeah.
And so I think just having a place to put that together a little bit was just a piece I'm grateful for, a little practice for me. And probably now if I revisited it, I'd put it in different words here and there. And that's the part about writing that's tricky.
Yeah, you put it out there. I wrote, the year my son was dying, I wrote a series of seasonal mindfulness journals. And the last one, Winter, I had to finish it after he died. And I chose to do that and put it out into the world. And I was really aware that there was sort of this darker slant over that one. And I changed a couple of my reflections and that, because I don't want it to be just about dark, heavy stuff. But would it look different today if I could write it a year out? Yes, but it's out there in the world. So,
right.
Well, so I wanted, because there are different therapies that are, have a solid evidence base, and lots of, where we can use reflective writing or journaling to heal from trauma. And also it's not always good. It can actually reinforce trauma, right? So it's I have to be conscious of that, because one of the ways I process the world is in writing. And also writing has been triggering sometimes for me. And that doesn't always mean bad. That just means triggering. It's just figuring that out. And so, yeah, and noticing that and just being conscious. And I also love that in writing, for me, sometimes that's where I figure out what I'm thinking and what I believe. It's right in that process. And so.
Yeah, I really like what you said about triggers aren't necessarily bad. And there's a range, but that it just not always seen 100% of it that way. Some are, they're too much, but having a little reminder that it's just sometimes the triggers are just a piece of paradox, they're like a piece of embracing, but it's hard because there's a range, and I never want to throw anything in generalizations because they're different. And some can be really harmful and really set us back into a place that's not good, but sometimes they just learning how to live with them. And I think that, and for me, grief, I call it a soul shock. I get a soul shock all the time from different moments, and sometimes they're stronger than others, but it's kind of learn, there you are, and it's gonna move through, but it's natural, and they aren't gonna go away. I'm probably always going to experience some degree of that,
Mhm.
but maybe not in the intensity of this first year or two. I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the
Maybe.
thing, right? Is we
Yeah.
don't have any idea.
No,
Um,
no.
I loved, so I find, we were chatting about community, and I have no idea for other people in different kinds of loss or trauma or grief. But after I lost Jairus, and I don't think this is uncommon, after I lost my son, really all the books that I was reading were related to loss. And I was reading memoir. And what I was doing is looking for hope. And some of the hope is just knowing that here's a person who did this really hard thing and they're still alive and well. And so it just reminded me that it's possible, not that our stories or trajectory will look the same. That's not what I was looking for. Just somehow the knowledge, um and also you would never wish that on anybody else. Like, it's not like you are happy other people have experienced suffering so that you have their positive modeling. But
Mhm.
that has felt really important to me. And I and so even writing, I think a lot of us love words, but it's just powerful. It encourages me to just put out imperfect writing, because it's not about having it all figured out or having it all gorgeous and tidy. It's about being real and allowing other people to witness that, I think. And we heal in doing that to some degree, and other people heal by what, like, we do that for each other. And I'm just like, I want more of that in this world. Like, I've never been into pretense, but more than ever, it's just like, like, why bother? It's just such a
It's
waste
so
of energy.
true. It's so true. And that's why people's stories and sharing, and like, I would agree with you. Like, I just get so much out of people's real stories, no matter what they are, and to find what parts resonate. Because that's one thing for me, and I'm guessing a little bit for you. Like, this is a big piece of my life, but it's not the only piece of my life. And so, but my work, it fits in the stream of honesty and community and practicing imperfect action, trying to be present and not escape life. And I think that it's like all in that same stream, and all the same things apply. It doesn't have to be the loss of a child,
Yeah.
or it all applies. That's kind of our common humanity, I think. And that everybody has loss and everybody has trauma,
Yeah.
to the most part. I mean, for
Yeah.
the most part, not every single human, but a lot.
Yeah.
And so, just be creating whatever it takes to express that. And that's why, writing is part of art. And artists who make things, and our kids were both artists, and it's a really healing thing to create, and and to have it be not worrying about how perfect it is, but just to, like, the act of making it is the most important part.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the product.
Yeah. I said after, I'm going to move on in one sec to the next questions, but I have said this, and it might sound dramatic, but I really mean it to my core, that there are times when I feel like there's this thing inside of me, and I need to get it out of me, because otherwise I'm going to explode, or combust or something. So it's like, and the way I know how to do that is just like, just type it out. I'm not worried about editing. I'm just like, there's this thing, and I needs to be out here where I can see it, and it's out of me, and now I can keep living.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, how so many of, like, when we offer things, it's reciprocal. Like, even if it's not reciprocated per se, it's like there's a healing benefit potentially, or a life-giving benefit. And I just feel like, I think writing for me is one of those things that can feel really hard right now. And also it's like, I need to write.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
So I've referred to this, but I tend to relate my interviews to what's happening inside my Brave and Beautiful community. And our topic this month is midlife self and soul care. So I want to, everything we're talking about, I think like relates. So we've been talking about this all along. I think the messiness of what it means to be human, right? The messiness of walking through this world, and how we're all very much messy, stretching in growth. And we're always going to be. What have you learned these past years about loving yourself well? Okay, where do I want to go with this? Let me just see. I don't like my questions anymore. Okay, well, yeah, so let's talk about self and soul care on a personal level. And you talked about how you're so grateful for the work that you did in the past. I think that was probably like all that sort of growth work that you did in the past that helps hold you steady in this season of life. But I imagine just because you're human too, there was a time where like you really had some deep learning to do about, the idea that you're allowed to care for yourself. You don't have to be at the bottom of the totem pole. Actually, I don't know if that's a racist. I have no idea. At the bottom of the who gets your attention time.
This is hard. A lot of those phrases. Yeah. So,
like,
but I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah, how did you basically, what did that look like, sort of that growth curve for you, learning that you don't have to be last, and in fact, you need to tend to yourself, you're allowed to. And then as a 2, I'm imagining this is part of your work. But also, I say that I'm in the center, like I've learned to put myself in the center of my, who gets my energy. And some of my Christian friends in particular don't like that because they believe God needs to be in the center, and it's just wrong for me to put myself there. But I put myself there because for me, my mind, body, spirit health is the center. And if I don't have that, and that's it. So anyways, I want to know, how would you draw that out for yourself, and how do you do this work to figure out in every season, like how you're going to care for yourself well?
Well, I'll just say I'm not that good at it. I mean, I'm just not. I'm getting better over time, but it's not as natural as I wish it was. But I think learning I've been married for 30 years, 5 kids, working. It's a lot, it's a lot to juggle. And I think a huge piece, like if there was anything, like the best self-care I ever did was go to codependent groups, 12-step groups, honestly, because it was like an act of trying to get healthier. And to hear that part of the dysfunction is just always thinking about everybody else. And so on that piece, and that was way before I became a Christian a long time ago, way before I got married, all that was in my family of origin, like that, who that's a piece of the Enneagram, but for sure, like since I was born, I've been taking care of people and not taking care of myself. Yeah. And so the more I think my growth over a lot of years has been to do some things just for me, and they're just different. They evolve, but sometimes it was just the act of, going to bed on time.
Yeah.
That's it's like for some people that's easy, but for me, like I would just keep working, more to do. I'd be the person that was up at 2 a.m, and that's how I knew that some things that had changed in my life is like, I just go to bed earlier, even if I don't really want to, to just leave it instead of, because a big piece of codependency is control. Okay. And so, one of the pieces of self-care is just kind of knowing what we might need and trying it. So for me personally, it just looks so different. I said it looks different every day, but I like to walk. I like to get outside. I like to have a day. Years ago, I made a day that I didn't meet with another human.
Okay.
all day. That was like one of my biggest acts of self-care. And this is probably like, I've probably done that for maybe about 7 or 8 years, maybe even a little bit longer. And so it doesn't mean that some days I don't, if I'm traveling or, something, I have to do something on a Monday, but I try and just be in my pajamas all day. It's a day that I can, I'm totally a suburban privileged person that gets their nails done and, things like that I used to never do.
Yeah.
I kind of slowly built them in, but then it was still like work to make it happen. So I kind of made it Monday, but I did it. If I was going to do some appointments or if I was going to do something, I just had room, and that I gave myself permission to not talk to anybody. Even my husband, he is an amazing teammate and I love him. He's super verbal like me. We're both like, and on Mondays, I'm like, just please don't talk to me. I need a day of not talking. And at least until a certain time later, like I just can't. And I find now that when my Monday gets wacky, oh my gosh, I don't do as good. And then I don't feel as guilty. That's a big piece. I used to feel so guilty. And now I don't as much, but I'm human and I do feel guilty. And one thing that's happening to me right now about self-care is that I'm getting ready to take a sabbatical. I've been working full time as pastor now for almost 17 years and 15 in the Refuge on April 1st of 2021. And so I've been going hard for a long time. I raised my kids as a working person. I have flexible hours and stuff, but it was a lot of work to build something from scratch. And I loved it, but I'm tired. I think, Jared, COVID, 15 years, it's a combination. And so I'm getting ready to take a 3-month break, which Enneagram 2, worker bee, 3 wing. And I have 1 in me too, it's like I codependent, want to make sure that everyone is good without me gone. And I know I was saying out loud to my team, I was like, my biggest fear is everyone is going to be so irritated with me. All the things that are loose ends and weird and band-aided together and all that. And you know what? My work is to just live with that.
Yeah.
It's going to uncover that. I know it is.
Yeah.
And it's part of it. And it's just human. And my team, I have a really great team, so they get it. But I feel that feeling. So I'm trying to work. And so then I'm like, I can't right now do this until I go out, or I'm not going to make it to going out. I'm really tired. And so I was just thinking actually today, what can I do to reorganize these next few days so they don't feel like this for 5 more? Because I used to be able to. It's not healthy. I'm not proud that I could. I just used to be able to. And I can't anymore. And I'm glad. It's a good indicator. Like listening to it instead of breaking. And so, I'm trying to make adjustments. I mean, I'm in a bad place, but I can see it more and then go, what do I need to do? What do I need to say no to? We have a thing at the Refuge. I think this is the ultimate self-care thing. We have a thing where this is through advocates and kind of adulting, some relationship stuff. You can say yes. You can say no. You can say, I don't know. Let me think about it. And I'll get back to you blank. And then the 4th one is, I'm sorry, I changed my mind. I changed my mind. And so I thought I could and I can't. And we, as a 2, I just go, I said I did it. I got to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'll gut it out and do it. And I think a lot of women are like this, no matter what Enneagram number we are. And so it's like learning how to go, I changed my mind. I thought I could, got to back out. I can't. So that's helped me a lot.
I just relate, like, even if the details aren't, exactly the same, I really just relate to what you're saying. I feel like we're doing very similar work probably right now in our lives, which makes sense, I think. But I just had to do the, I'm sorry, I thought I could do it and I can't, and refunded somebody some money for some work because I can't. And I had hoped I could. That's what I wanted to be true, and it wasn't true. And never have I done that. Probably never in my I was going to swear there, never in my life. And I just shared on a video with a private, with my membership community last week, one day, how much my energy levels, just like my cat is teaching me this, my brand new little kitty, how she just like ricochets around the house, like, you know, just like a little, this whizzing fur ball. And then all of a sudden she's like, nope, having a nap. Like, it's just like, she's just done. And I just started laughing and I'm like, oh my God, that's what my body feels like right now. It's like my little bits of energy are so small that I can have one kind of vulnerable conversation and then I'm done. And it might be for 8 hours, it might be for 2 hours, but I can't. And then I can get back up and I can do one more thing. But it's very humbling and admittedly frustrating sometimes. But this whole practice, I think that practicing is like learning, it is what it is. Here I am. So like, I don't want to quit. I love my work. So it's like, how can I work with this, tell the truth, work with it, and find ways of loving myself forward. That includes need for rest. I'm not taking 3 months off, but before my son died, I had like gotten quite good. I was still learning, but gotten quite good at practicing and then shifting accordingly. So like noticing my energy levels, noticing what works, what didn't. But one of those big things for me is I need rest. I always need rest. Like it's not just Jairus. Like I feel like it is sometimes like taking hits, like 7 years ago, losing my dad and 2 other family members to cancer, and then going into years of struggle with our son, and then deep crises for 18 months and the loss of him, and then COVID. It's just like, of course you're tired. Of course. Right. But in the past, I did a lot of overriding, like a lot of us do, because we're just, you know, we're moms and our friends need us, and you know, and you just do that. And now I just can't override. I'm just that little kitty that's just like, no, when I'm done, I'm done. I just need that little nap. And then, yeah. Yeah. So I just think this is such an act of kindness. So even for people who aren't in, you know, walking through immediate loss or whatever, but just like this need for rest and for letting guilt go, it's just a recurring theme. And it's really important for me. So one of the things I didn't finish my sentence properly is even like I mark out the year ahead. These are my rest weeks, because if I don't do that, I'll probably override and I'll say yes to something, sort of knowing it's a bad idea, but sort of like deferring dealing with it, you know? And so just being matter of fact, it's like, I can't function on this level, and this is what I need, and owning that and then acting accordingly, even if it's imperfect and I have to shift as I go. That's such an act of love, I think.
So true. And I mean, I love being able to change gears as needed. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't do it every day. And I sometimes am able, but learning how to see, because that's the thing is, if people are always like, I can't, then it's hard. But when we have established, like, I have a history of showing up properly. So can I please let myself off the hook?
Yeah.
For not doing it when I just can't. And it's an interesting thing how like ingrained it is to just push.
Yeah.
And to just push. And I think if there was one thing, my body has never wanted me to push. I just ignored my body.
Yeah.
And pushed through it. My body's always been telling me. And I think that that's a little piece. And I have so much work to do in the body department. I mean, it's going to take a long time to keep getting better at it, but it is getting better. Like if I listen and pause, I can feel it. And it's saying, no.
Yeah.
Change your mind.
Yeah.
Carve it out.
Yeah.
Do it. And then the other part, I think, on self-care for the conversation, especially with women, is we have preconceived notions of what self-care looks like based on what other people do. And I think part is using our agency to go, what is it for me? Kind of like grief has no rules. self-care looks different for everybody. So like, for example, we have water heals. I love the water. And we do this, we have a nonprofit that teaches people how to wakeboard, water ski, surf, kneeboard, and be on the water. Water sports empowerment for the soul is really powerful. But I will say some people would look and go, oh my gosh, they're doing so much, like it's,
Right.
and to us, we're like, no, it is so much self-care and rest. It's like not for everybody else, actually. I mean, we're glad people benefit, but we get so much out of it.
Yeah.
So I've got to kind of own that. Some people wouldn't like that pace.
Yeah.
But for me, it's so life-giving that it is self-care, even though I'm not alone or quiet.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for everybody to kind of get more clear on over time, practicing owning our own forms of self-care.
Right. And like letting go of the comparing and judging. I think some that can happen.
Yeah.
Are you an extrovert, Jenna? Like, are you fairly?
I am. I used to be like way over there, and now I'm like, I'm not as strong. I mean, I get a lot of energy. So I'm not right in the middle. I'm more E, but I like I.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was thinking, I was on a long road trip yesterday, and one of the thoughts that popped into my brain was even about how, like, I remember my cousin, one of my cousins, when her mom died, and she went right back to work. And that's what she needed to do for 2 or 3 weeks. And then it was like, oh, no, now I need rest. Like, and I was thinking about that and how we can, like, grief or not, like, we can use this idea no matter what, this practice of getting better at listening in and honoring what we hear versus pushing through and neglecting until we're, crashing and burning. And also the idea that you brought up that it's going to look different for each of us. There isn't one right way. Nobody can give you the one right way. Like, you really do have to practice. You really do have to step out and try, experiment, and just test as you go. And also that means you're not wrong if you try something and realize, oh, this isn't working for me. It's like, yay, you gathered information. Now what, but just this idea, because I feel like for me, one act of self-care in the last month since Jairus died was that I kept working. I did let go of some of my work, and some months there was no work, and some weeks I could do 5 hours of work only, but there was some, and that was an act of self-care because I needed to be out of me. I needed to be engaging with the world to create a sort of lifeline, and to be in community and to keep teaching the things I believe in, because integrity is so important to me that I'll never tell you to do something if I'm not also going to do it. So it was like, it's this reciprocal thing, but that was self-care. And for another person, they might look at me and say, somehow I must be grieving wrong because she's still doing this other stuff, even though she can't see my whole reality. And it's just like, it's okay. Like, you get to do you get to change your mind. Yes. But you get to try, and that's an act of love.
Yes, I love that. So good. I'm so with you.
Yeah. So I think it feels like we're going to end here. We're so long compared to our my plan. Oh, so good. But let you please end, Kathy, just with a final thought or a bit of wisdom, a word of encouragement, just something that you want to offer up to anybody listening if they are, and I'm just going to come back to our title, just kind of hungry for this idea of loving ourselves tenderly as we wander, stumble, and against all odds continue to hope. Or maybe they just want to begin practicing better care, tending to themselves.
I think I would just say, keep connecting with other people, wandering, stumbling, finding our way. And to me, that will always help us in some small way, and to be really gentle with ourselves, to just be so gentle with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's not a, any kind of off the hook of reality. It's like a survival, is just to be so gentle with ourselves, because we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep moving. We're going to keep growing. We don't need to hammer that in. That's going to happen because we're brave and beautiful women who are strong. and are going to keep doing it. So that will come naturally. What won't come naturally is to be gentle with ourselves.
Yeah.
And to not push ourselves so hard. And, always eating time for me, I know I'm in trouble when I'm trying to figure it out in my head. Anytime. This is my warning. When I go, I'm just going to figure it out. And I used to say it so much. I still say it. I'm just trying to say it less, because I always know that it means I'm in my head and not in my guts and my soul and my heart and my practice. I'm just in trying to cognitively make it work.
Yeah.
And it's really tiring. It's usually pretty futile. And it's for sure unproductive in the end. And it will not bring life and freedom. Soul, guts, heart, totally different story. And so to just keep being gentle with ourselves, because usually the figuring out is to try and get out of an uncomfortable situation, whatever that is, and make sense of it and find meaning and do whatever. It's like the strive, like almost like that action, the striving. And the warning is, when I'm feeling like that, to just pause and be gentle with myself, and to be really accept our humanness. We're just human. So strong and so fragile.
And we're doing some hard stuff, like hard, and I don't mean just you and I, but I mean, you get to hear
Everybody.
people's stories, right? And you're like, we should all be like super proud of ourselves, waving flags that like, look how cool I am, because it's like we're doing hard stuff, and lots of it without a roadmap.
Yes, it is amazing. I'm in a lot of spaces with women, and when I have this long-term group at the Ex Good Christian Women, we've been together for 14 years, almost 15, and nobody in that group has lost a child, not one. But they all have endured such hard things and are all surviving and have been through so much and continue to be through so much. And they're so brave, and they're so beautiful, and they're so inspiring to me. We only meet once a month, but it is like it's one of my best parts. And to see the long story of how amazing people staying in together in some way, shape, or form, and just to honor that. It's so much loss and so much beautiful growth, all in the same space in most humans.
Yeah. Well, let's end there, my friend. I am, again, grateful for you, and I love you, and you are a gift to me. And that's one of the paradoxes, is knowing you and, loving your heart and all of that, and also knowing the reason that we, connected. So, but it doesn't change in any way the gift. And I like that. That the pain never overrides the beauty, and the pain never, they just exist side by side, or like this. So
all together. Well, love you, friend. So grateful for you. Again, I hate this is how we met, but thank you to whoever was out there that put us together.
Yeah.
Because that was really meant to be. And you've been really a healing force in this past year. Just knowing you exist and that you're carrying on and crawling alongside me, and then standing up and doing what we need to do and what we want to do in the middle of it all. So, all right. Lots of love.
Bye, everyone.